Here we go.
Greetings, one and all, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Star of Jade Odyssey. I am your Dungeon Master, Josh Suich, and I am joined, per usual, by my good Johnny friends who will be playing the characters in tonight's escapade. Please,
whatever spiel you're going to give me, and
then go
for it.
Matthew, please.
Should I turn this music down?
Yeah, sure, you can turn it down.
Hey, my name is Matthew Talamini. I'm a writer and web developer based in Providence, Rhode Island, and you can find my stuff at matthewtalamini.com, although I think that address might be down now and I should really check. I am playing the High Elf Warlock Crocular.
Excellent. LT.
He's a high elf.
Hi, I'm LT. I'm playing Jim Varden, the human sorcerer, and MatthewTalamini.com is currently up and running.
Thanks for the live
It is
update.
selling Chinese bidets, but it is up and running.
Oh, no, it's telling us that everything is extraordinary.
Dwight.
Hailing at 5'10" from Stephenville, Texas, it's Idion Tumley!
And Jared.
Hey, my name's Jared. I am playing Ivan, an angry old...
Excellent. Love to hear it. So, you can fade. So, when last we played, you finally arrived at the Arcanium. Approaching in the
I'm trying to remember if it was dawn.
dusk, but in the twilight hours, I believe dawn, you guys arrived in the morning as the sun was rising. You saw the light cascading
Prolific glass
structure, the Arcanium. Inside of this giant glass tower, you saw smaller towers and structures within, a lot of them on platforms. So it looks like there is an entire system of towers and buildings that are encased completely by the Arcanium. Surrounding the Arcanium are blocks and blocks and blocks of city buildings that have popped up, housing commerce, housing
taverns and a number of
places that do business that is entirely dependent upon
for the local economy.
You guys, auspicious advice by Captain Graham. He encouraged you to be kind to beggars, and you immediately went as a party in two different directions. Ivan went immediately. Large
What do you mean?
gates
of the Arcanium.
What's that?
What do you mean 2 different directions?
Well, Ivan was going to head for the gates of the Arcanium. They're enormous glass and metal, intricately spun doors that about a dozen elven guards stood outside of. So Ivan wandered over in that direction and was kind of looking around for a place to get in, but all he found was these enormous gates that would cry out in frustration as he might. And then the only other places to go were an entrance into the garrison and some sort of main kind of like official business hall that was not an entrance to the Arcanium. It's just City Hall over here. So in the meantime, Crocular, Jim, and Enion went in the direction of an art display. There was a large moonstone statue being carved. There was an earth genasi who was working on it. There was a crowd of people that had assembled around this structure, and Crocular immediately, insight into the nature of this statue, proceeded to give a scathing commentary on the artist, those who enjoyed it and those who hated it. And he would have upset everyone around him had it not been for the murder that very quickly ensued. Having the name Karen clearly and cleanly upon his lips, a youth. Feedback. Still getting feedback.
I think it's coming from Dwight.
What is? We good? Still echoing.
But I think you've put your headphones onto your microphone.
Bold
What?
move, Cotton.
Okay.
There we go. Whatever it was, it seems to be over. So, having pronounced the name Karen upon his lips, a youth of about 14, 15 immediately turned around and squinted his eyes at Crocular and the rest. He went to run, but Crocular immediately used a magical ability. He used an enhanced version of his mage hand to telekinetically shove the youth back towards himself, not knowing that he was and not knowing whether he was going to be held or hit again. The youth froze for a moment and had a thought that Crocular was privy to, because Crocular had cast a spell over the youth. He heard the youth say, "Well, why do they want these guys?" But upon trying to probe further, the of the youth became unavailable to Crocular because the youth pushed back against this, was overcome. Right around that time, Enion recognized that there was a figure pretending to be an old woman, but he saw her wig shift and he saw the telltale motion of a weapon being drawn underneath the cloak. Enion fired twice quickly, missing the figure, but those arrows went into the leg of a man in the crowd who cried, fell to the ground, and was crawling away. Not knowing what it was that Enion had seen, his teammates were confused why Enion was now shooting helpless, seemingly, people in the crowd. And another assassin appeared, taking advantage of the distraction and slitting the throat of the youth, who fell to the ground dead. The party then chose to pursue this halfling rogue who had assassinated the figure, although they didn't know that it was an assassin yet. They just saw that it was a cloaked figure. After a few seconds of pursuit, Enion managed to spot that it was a halfling, and the party split. Crocular decided to continue to run in the direction of Ivan, and Enion tried to climb over the suitcases that were between himself and the would-be assassin, and jumped on top of him, got into a scuffle. And at this point, Jim and Crocular had been separated from Enion by at least 30, 50, 60 feet. And over their shoulders, they saw a large beam of light come down after they heard the halfling cry out, "Licorice! Licorice!" Upon returning to the site, Crocular, using his ability to read magical auras, inspected the situation and recognized the telltale traces of illusion magic wearing off. I guess Enion has already grown bored of us and has already absconded. So, having recognized that some strong magic was used and that there was no invisible body in front of them, Crocular and Jim decided to run and catch up with Ivan. They discussed their possible entrances and exits, and just then they saw a group of Order of the Crescent Moon monks, who are the local kind of heavy enforcers in the area outside of the Arcanium, making their way towards the party. They ran through the byways and alleys, used a fancy bit of magic to put up an illusion behind them. They ran away and managed to make it to the Dappled Pond, where they met the proprietor of the institution. And that is where we left off. Now, before we jump back into it, does anybody have any questions, anything that they would like clarified, any points of confusion? Sorry, fruit flies.
Is Jim still
any
a rabbit?
questions? What's that?
Is Jim still a rabbit?
Jim still has rabbit-like features,
Rabbitoid
yes.
features, okay.
He's got kind of coloration to the tip of his nose, large ears that are very functional and useful for hearing things, and strong legs that are him an extra 10 feet of speed. So, yes, you are still rabbit-like in your features. Anybody else? Good to go?
Yep.
Okay. So, the red-headed figure, oh boy, you know, here I am, right here at the top of the session. I'm trying to remember what the name of the... do you guys remember if I gave her a name? I am sure that I did.
There are people with names in this?
Yeah, some people have names.
There was the proprietor of the Dappled Pond, but I don't remember her name.
I thought her
Okay.
name was the proprietor of the Dappled Pond.
Well, let's... very good. Well, you know what? Maybe you guys haven't gotten a name from her yet. In fact, I think that's the case.
I remember that she warned us not to say the name of she who shall not be named, who starts with a K.
Or a Q.
Or possibly a Q, sometimes a C.
Okay, I'm just making a note here. Okay, very good. Yeah, so you guys made it.
There was a knock at the door
That
when
There's a knock at the door.
we ended.
So, the innkeeper, her red hair and her head, first her red hair, then the rest of her face, enters the room after that knock. And she brings in a large tray of food and wine and ale and bread and cheese and fish, and puts it before you and sits down and watches all of you kind of immediately tuck in. I'm sure all of you have, it's been a while since you've had, you know,
Fresh hot
food. Not that the food on the Dancing Narwhal was abysmal, but this is certainly much better. And she watches all of you. Does everybody tuck in and start to eat? Or I know you guys have trust issues.
And drink.
And drink.
Am I there?
Enion, you are not. The party, since you disappeared in the
Cloud
of laser light and magic and screaming.
I'm glad they're concerned about me.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan's ready to engage with her, so as soon as she comes in, Ivan gets up from sitting at one of the tables and goes to meet her at the table. She looks like she's putting it down.
Oh, there's one big table in the room. So
Okay.
table, she walks over to you, puts down the food, and has a seat at the head of the table, and looks around at all of you and says, "Well, eat up. No use letting it go cold.
Thank
Now,
you,
I
ma'am.
suppose you've got some questions for you, but I suppose it'd be helpful to get a lay of the situation, how you lost your friend."
Yes, on our way here, we came across a pirate ship that had some strange figures in black. Have you heard of those Nothics? The
I've heard of
monsters
the
with one.
creatures. Yes, I've
Well,
heard of the creatures. They're servants of the lady, and she kind of looks over at you, Crocular, and says, "Right, will it suffice to refer to her as such for the rest of our conversation?"
Yes, if that is what you wish to call the lady.
It is indeed. You can see that she looks like a little bit of sweat broke out on her forehead because she couldn't quite tell whether you were going to go along with that. So, some Nothics dressed as ninjas stole your friend.
that's right.
And you're
Took 'em and
saying that
just-
they're dressed in black, but I believe they were dressed in like dark red.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't remember that. All right, they were dressed in dark red and just kind of disappeared after into thin air, I think. Ivan looks over at Jim and Crocular to see if they remember it differently.
There was a lot of movement. I didn't see what actually happened, but it was during that.
It was in the
that
middle of the
combat.
fight, but
Yeah.
the thing for you to know, ma'am. Well, we seem to be torches that people that she can see from afar. We've had trouble, ever since we set out on this journey, even before.
Even before. And
Yeah,
that's why you set out on the journey, is because the trouble started before?
Yeah, we met her. You heard of the dreamscape?
I've heard of it, yes. And just then you hear a boom, boom, boom coming from. It's a forceful, energetic knock, but it's coming from low off the ground. And you see her hold up a finger, and she walks over and opens up the door, and you see the halfling assassin dragging the body of Enion Tumley into the room. And that's what you see. I'm sure that you guys might have split-second reaction seeing this person.
What?
I think I would be spitting out my drink and probably casting suggestion to tell him to stop.
Freeze. Okay.
Don't
Stop.
move.
What's
Stop,
the
don't
word
move.
that you're using for suggestion?
I guess suggestion is a little heavier, so I can say, stop where you are, don't move or speak.
I thought, is suggestion a one word, or is that command?
That's
Suggestion
command.
can be more.
Yeah, suggestion is yeah. I can give him a reasonable course of action for the next 8 hours.
Okay, so you're trying to cast suggestion. Crocular, is there a thing that... Do you cast a spell? Do you say something? Do you use a weapon?
Yeah, you're going to see Crocular suddenly bulk up a little bit as the spell false life comes into effect.
Ivan, are you more shocked or angry or what?
Ivan's gonna wait.
Okay.
He thinks there's an explanation.
Very good. Jim, what is the spell for your spell?
15. Let's see.
When you jump up and you point your finger at him and you hear
Mm-hmm.
arcane energy booming from Jim's voice, like all of you feel the power of the compulsion in his voice, the halfling kind of, you see his neck kind of shiver a little, and he looks at you and he kind of squints at you, Jim, and he says, "Keep your words to yourself, Biggin. I don't get paid enough for this, Tara." And he looks over at the red-headed woman and he says, "I'm going to charge you triple next time you act it like this." And he thunk kind of drops Enion, and you can see his head slams onto the ground, and he turns and kind of whips his color-shifting cloak around, looks daggers at all of you, and then goes marching out of the room and slams the door behind him. And Tara looks at all of you and says, "About that, it's not as diplomatic as I'd like for it to be, and I'm sure this makes you raise a lot of questions about what sort of person is sending hired assassins after your friends. I assure you that that particular part of the plan was an improvisation on his part and in no way reflects the desires of our friend safely into his presence. But from what I understand, y'all went a bit off book. Now,
So I think I'm not listening to her. I'm going over to see if I can help Enion because he looks dead.
Yeah.
And is this the? I think I have like a kit.
If you've got a healer's kit, then you can make that medicine check, I believe, with double proficiency. Let's do that for right now.
Okay.
Or you just automatically do it.
Well,
I think usually even having a kit, it'll give you like advantage or double proficiency.
So make it 13.
Yeah, okay. With a 13, you can recognize that he is on some sort of temporary soporific, and you can see that he seems to be in the process of gaining consciousness. If you kind of sit him, move his arms around and get his blood flow going, maybe give him some water, he should kind of come to over the next few minutes.
Okay. Working on that.
Okay. So propped up in a seat, and Ivan, you're kind of moving one of his arms. Jim, you're moving the other one. And Tara looks around at all of you and says, "As I said, you went a bit off book. You were supposed to make prompt contact with one of Dom's spies in his spy network of the beggars on the city square, and you managed to, within seconds, sort of trouble. What happened?"
There was
Ivan looks at them like, "Yeah, what did happen?"
I know that we've talked about all this in game, like we've metagamed and we've gone over. I really do want to see Crocular, Jim, and Enion try to explain to Ivan just exactly how it is that things got to this point.
There was a weird statue that was being carved, and I got distracted, honestly, and lost track of where you were, Ivan. And then just all hell broke loose. Enion started shooting people. Crocular was like knocking kids down, and then we just took off and came here.
Yes. Well, a young boy, obviously an agent of some enemy, took one look at us and ran to go and tell his sinister superiors about our presence. I took action defensively, as I ought to. More of the agents appeared. I attempted to run away, but somehow I couldn't seem to run in the opposite direction from them. They were always in front of me. And then Jim turned into a rabbit.
Oh yeah, that.
And then Enion was not there anymore. And I continued running, and here I am. It was all very confusing. I can't
Yeah, last
say I
time we saw
understood it
Enion, he
very
was a
well.
pile of ash.
You see that Tara kind of rolls her eyes and says, he used the licorice trick, didn't he?
He did say licorice.
Right, yeah. He's a fan of setting off arcane sigils with little contingency plans. I'm sure that one cost him a pretty penny to blow. He'll be wanting extra payment from you, I'm sure. He's a bit dramatic and a bit extreme, but he gets results. And understand, Dom said that it's absolutely a matter of, the fate of, the lives of tens upon thousands or some other terrible thing for you to make it to him.
So Jim jumps up and starts digging through Enion's backpack and looking for the ratkin.
Yeah, so you're looking through the backpack and
For
it's you don't see Neri anywhere.
Oh man, Neri's gone too.
You've lost another of your friends. Who's Neri? He wasn't included on any of the lists.
You probably
he-
found something dangerous to touch.
Yeah. If there's something dangerous nearby, he probably is going for it.
Just a kid
Probably the
for
most dangerous thing.
helping out.
All right. Well, there's plenty of dangerous things in the town square to be traded. There's monsters aplenty, dangerous
Well,
assassins.
what's the worst thing? What's the worst thing?
The worst thing. Well, there's cultists. I'm sure there's always an odd doppelganger wandering around looking for a
Alright.
soul to steal.
Well, those are good leads. Good
He
leads.
couldn't move very fast.
Move. All right. So yeah, you're looking through the pack, Jim, and yeah, Neri is gone.
Dang it.
You do make me a search check.
Investigation?
Not search check. Come on, Matthew. What's the word I'm looking for? Not investigate. Perception. Make me a perception check.
Probably survival, but maybe
Well,
perception.
he's looking through the stuff. I'm looking to see if he finds something in the bag.
Oh, perception.
So, yeah, perception check. Make me a perception check.
Ooh, a rare high roll for me. 15.
You find a bag of 5,000 gold.
Wow. He has not spent any of his money since he won. Wait, was that him? No, that was Pone. Oh, but Enion won the money, right?
You know that Enion won some money, but he's also spent his money and should not have this much. Like not by a long shot.
Yeah, I think I might be a little suspicious, but I'm like, he got a better deal than I did over at that Gnome Depot.
So do you just put it back in his bag?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Enion is coming to, and Enion, the best you remember is that you jumped on this halfling. You remember getting jabbed as he was screaming licorice, and then everything kind of goes wonky, right? You remember waking up, so you do not
What are you
recall.
freaks doing here?
Rescuing you, I think.
From what? What are you rescuing me from? That sounds silly.
You got assassinated, but now you're not
Definitely
anymore.
didn't get assassinated. I'm
No, you
right
definitely
here.
got assassinated. Here you are. So
I'm
I see
here
we
looking
rescued
for
you.
Dom guy.
Yeah. Anyway,
Where's
let's
Neri?
find Dom.
So
What'd y'all do with Neri?
I don't know. You had him last.
You have always been trying to get Neri off of me.
Okay, well, we'll find him later. I think he's probably going after some cultists. Maybe a doppelganger.
who's this Neri fella you keep speaking of? Why did you have him on you? Is he a wee little lad?
It's a wee little lad with a broken leg. He's not going anywhere.
Are you carrying around an invalid child? in the
Middle of life and
Yes. Yes, we are.
Well,
Whose
whose
child?
child is he? Give him back. Where'd
It's
he come
not
from?
even the strangest thing that's happening here. Can we just move on?
All
Wait,
right.
you should go find Neri. We'll go look for Jim Bombos.
No one's going anywhere. And she like slams her fist onto the table, and she points at the door with her hand, and you can hear it ka-chunk, lock closed. And she says, "No one's tearing off on a wild goose chase to look for some invalid child. Now, give me a description of him, and I'll have some of my men comb the area, and we'll see if we can find him. I'll put word in with the beggars, and we'll."
He's
And
small and
she
he has
pulls out
broken
a
leg.
quill and a piece of
She's, like,
paper, and
so
she's ready
high.
to take a description of him.
So he's actually a little rat boy. What do you call
Yeah, I
those?
forgot.
A ratkin?
Yeah, yeah.
She kind of, whoo, just kind of brushes off what Anyway, yeah, and so she takes down a description of him. You guys describe his broken leg.
Crocular asks to take the paper and writing implement. Could I see
I'm
that?
sure that I'll regret this, but all right, I could find another one if I need to. The writing implement
Jim's trying
and
not to
paper.
laugh.
Crocular draws a quick sketch of Neri. It's only a little bit sinister, and it does look like him. We're
Make
easy to
me
find him.
make me a performance check with advantage. You've got plenty of time. You've studied this guy. You know what he looks like.
I'm a trained
Please roll
in
double
art.
ones. I'm begging you, roll double ones.
Double ones. Double ones.
No, that's going to be a 20.
A
Dirty
20.
20.
An excellent likeness of him with stylistically slightly sinister affectation, but is still clearly useful to recognize and identify this ratkin positively.
If you look around the eyes here, I've drawn in the tendency to go after cursed objects, which are of great danger. It's there in the cast of the features. I thought it
That
was
is
a nice
just
touch.
like Neri.
Jim sees the picture and he says, "Wait, that looks perfectly normal. Is there something wrong with me?
Or something wrong with Crocular.
Or something wrong with Crocular?"
Or is it so right? So Tara takes the image from you, and she goes over the corner of the room and takes out an envelope from a drawer. Scribbles some things. She seals it with some wax. She goes over to the door that she had previously locked. She does a little motion with her wrist, and you can hear an arcane lock, undo. She opens the door, calls for a serving girl, and the one that was in the bar takes the letter from her. She mutters something into her ear and goes scurrying off. She turns around and looks at all of you and says, "I need you to give me your most solemn vow that you'll do to leave these premises until such a time as the master is able to summon you to." There are assassins, there are mercenaries, there are, from what I understand, city guards, monks of the Order of the Silver Crescent, all hunting for you, the four of you. So, riddle me this. Does anybody think that there's any reasonable reason sticking their face outside these walls? And she's just staring intently at all of you.
Sounds like it'd be fun.
No, ma'am.
This is the most reasonable group. So
Is that what Anian says?
Yes?
All right. Ivan looks at him and then looks at her and then hits him over the head to to do.
Like a dope slap or knocks him out?
Non-lethal
knock-
damage, huh?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay. Roll an attack.
Okay.
Team building exercises.
19.
I'm gonna imagine that hits. So Enion, we need to figure out exactly how many hit points Enion has. He was reduced by this exchange. Let's see here. Enion, you've got 7 hit points. I rolled 2d12 and you've got 7. So, Ivan, if you do more than 7 hit points with your initial strike, I'm not sure what that is. I am guessing it's a 1d6 plus your strength or 1d8 plus your strength, or are you using your axe to whack him over the head non-lethally?
I was just thinking to punch him. So
Uh,
that would just be
That'd be what?
6.
It's
6 points of non-lethal damage?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Enion, you've got a single hit point left, and your bell has been rung, and your teammate has just clocked you in the head, and you are right at the edge of losing consciousness, but you're kind of swimming around. So Tara cries out at Ivan and says, "Oh, he's already had his. He's already been through the ringer. There are better ways." And she pulls out
a manacle.
and she cuffs one to Enion's wrist.
Ivan,
Or at least she tries to. Enion, make me a dexterity saving throw. And if you want, you can make me a dexterity saving throw. You can choose to fail. I'm guessing Ivan might intentionally let her do it.
Yeah, I'm not going to resist her.
Yeah. So Enion, make me a dexterity saving throw to see if you can snatch your hand out of the way of this lady trying to cuff you so that he won't beat you anymore.
7.
Okay. Yeah, so the cuff slaps down around both of your wrists, and she grabs you by the other hand, Ivan, and says, "There'll be no more need for violence, Large Master, but I trust that given this manacle, you'll be able to keep tabs on him."
Well, ma'am, sorry for the misunderstanding. That's not what we think of as violence. It was more of man talk.
Right. Okay, then. You'll just wait here.
Rough and tumble.
Does Crocular say rough and tumble?
No.
Okay, all right. Crocular and Jim, and she says, "Do you think it's possible that the two of you could keep murdering him for just a few minutes while I go and take care of some business?
Ma'am,
accelerate.
Getting
Let's
you
find
out
out.
of my facility, out of my house."
our friendship, such as it is, was formed behind the bars of a mental institution. The 4 of us are completely incapable of being unsupervised by adults for more than 1 minute.
Oh,
It would
That's-
seem.
True, most of the time.
Bill! Bill! And you see a large, overweight, half-orc guy who's a couple of inches taller than Ivan and clearly weighs a good bit more. He doesn't look like he's quite as muscular as Ivan. He looks like his shoulders and his arms aren't quite as beefy, but he's a very thick gentleman, especially with a really large torso and leg. It looks like
If
he
he
just kind of ran at you and bounced you into the wall. He could clean your clock, especially Crocular and Jim. So he kind of sticks his head into the room and says, "Yes, Mr. And she says, I'd like for you to keep an eye on these gentlemen. Hopefully they'll all get along, but if any of them tries to hurt the other, sit on them, would you please? And he kind of
Miss
goes over
Tara?
and sits in the corner.
Miss
Yes, dear.
Tara,
Yes, dear.
on a completely serious note, completely serious, I'm so confused by the events of the last hour. I think I might be having a breakdown again. And so I'm quite happy for Bill here to maybe sit on me if it seems like I need it.
Would you like to sit
Ivan-
down next to Bill so that in the event that you need it, you'll be right there?
That
Jim
sounds
pulls
nice.
some manacles out of his backpack and
Okay.
offers it to Crocula. Would you like to manacle yourself to Bill?
No, I think I'll be okay without it for now.
Okay.
Ivan is definitely blushing and looking down at this point. He can't look at her.
Yeah, I think she's looking at all of you like you're definitely... and she's realizing that now. She, as soon as you
Come from
a mental health, a hospital or whatever, you see she kind of, oh, right, okay. She kind of, her posture towards you shifts a little bit. She seems to be in self-preservation mode. So she steps out of the room and just for a few minutes. I don't know what hijinks up to. I feel like I need to just let the camera sit there. We see Crocular kind of twiddling his thumbs next to a half 5 to 6 times more than him. Jim is the only one free to move about the room. Ivan and Inion
and keep eating and drinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down and keep eating and drinking.
So Jim
Especially
is
alcohol.
satisfying his body's desires on good food and drink. And Tara shows up after a few minutes and says, right. And I've explained the situation, that it's quite urgent. And I believe that at any moment we'll be receiving a... And you see a portal open up in the room next to her, like on the far wall. And you see an opening into a beautiful cerulean blue marble waiting room of some kind. And you see a servant step out wearing cerulean blue livery with a large silver oval on the chest. And on that oval is a large piece of quartz, a beautiful large quartz crystal. And you recognize the same seal that was on Dom's missive before that Ivan picked up out of the dirt. So Ivan, you recognize that same symbol. And the servant looks at Tara, kind of gives her a small nod, looks at all of you, and says, my master, Dom Delabrambo, Brighton Bubblefusen, von Elschnap der Stellingmeisen, bids you all enter his domicile and be guests under his protection in his facility. Will you all please join me post-haste? And he kind of steps back and gestures with his hand towards this open portal.
Okay.
Ivan looks over at the woman.
Looks like the guy.
And then looks at their manacles to see if she plans to unmanacle them before we go in.
Yeah, she walks up and unmanacles you first, Ivan. Does it fairly quickly, and then she kind of steps back out of arm's reach of you and kind of pulls Inion's wrist towards herself, and he's still kind of being groggy. She unlocks his manacle, and then she grabs Bill by the wrist and is pulling him and says, well, masters, it's been a real pleasure serving all of you, and I honestly hope to never see you again. And she kind of comes out, runs out the door with Bill and slams the door behind her. So you're all standing there, sitting there, whatever, in this room. There's a blonde-haired youth in a cerulean blue servant's tabard pointing at a portal that leads into some sort of palatial room.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I
Let's
say
go,
to
guys.
Jim, "Aw, I
go
miss
ahead.
Bill. He was a comforting reminder of authority."
Yeah. I was hoping he would come with us.
Me too.
Crocular! How's a man supposed to catch a date with an innkeeper with a friend like you?
Oh.
Don't ever talk about my mental condition to women again.
Enion,
Worst
make me
wingman ever.
Enion,
Sorry?
make me a Constitution saving throw, please.
Seven.
Okay. Yeah, Enion, you feel groggy and dizzy, and you can hear Ivan fighting with Crocular over a woman, and Jim is kind of confused, and you're
I'm like, guys, let's go.
in a bit of a haze.
I've actually also used my what's it called, second wind to regain 7 hit points. So.
Then you,
Sweet.
this cloud of haze around you lifts, and you summon your adrenaline, you steel yourself, and you shake off this poison.
And as you come,
You see Crocular. Ivan is arguing with Crocular for shaming him in front of Terra. You see Jim kind of raising his hands placatingly.
I walk through the portal.
Gentlemen, your friend Enion Tumley has walked past this servant through the portal, and you see him standing in the middle of a room looking around.
Sounds great.
I'm going
I go
through
in
too.
after him.
Yep.
All right.
Ivan's the last through.
Yeah.
Before he goes through, Ivan looks at himself, dusts himself off as best he can, rubs off any splotches, looks in a mirror if there's a dim bronze mirror or a pitcher, tries to like comb his hair with his hands.
Actually,
Okay, he's ready to go.
can Crocular grab some food?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I grabbed some food. I got my pockets full of bread or whatever.
Yeah, sure. There's actually a couple of turkey legs, so you can grab a couple of whole turkey legs if you want.
There's some kind of napkin or paper towel to wrap those in, or
Absolutely, you can steal the linen from the bread basket.
no?
There's
I'm not
no
going to steal any
paper
linen from
towels
the bread
in
basket.
D&D.
I'm not taking the turkey legs. Just some bread for my pockets.
Fine. We see a
Pockets are
baguette sticking out of the back of Crocular's pockets. Very good. So you guys do all these little things, and eventually all of you are standing in the middle of a room. You see that this is a circular room covered in a large vaulted glass dome. The ceiling looks to be a good 80 feet tall, though. You look to be in the, about 80 foot tall, maybe 120 foot wide circular room. You can see beyond the glass, out through large distances of space, other floating platforms similar to this one, above and below. As you look around, you see enormous, gorgeous, verdant plants with huge leaves, the size of a small table, a small end table. You see small birds flittering around and flying. You see a number of various different glass instruments and other types of arcane devices for measuring and whatnot. And turning towards you, from peering down into something that looks like it's got some sort of little visual apparatus where you put your face into, turning and looking, you see a gnome resplendent in cerulean, wearing beautiful gemstones on rings on his fingers. You see that he has garb that is trimmed in wide white lips of material that have arcane runes all over and glow with arcane light. The man appears to be literally covered in magic. He's a gnome. He's a gnome. And this gnome with a large, curly, ornate mustache and a tremendous goatee that goes down almost 1.5 feet. It's dark black. He walks over to all of you and bows deeply to you and says, "To my home, allow me to introduce myself. I am a friend of a friend. Dom de la Brombo, Brighton, Bubblefusen, von Eelsnap, der Schnellingmeissen. Art of the Council of Mordenkainen. At your service." And he bows deeply.
So, hi, I'm Jim. We have a letter for you. Fine. And I guess I produced the letter and hand it over, if I can.
Yes, very good. This is mostly for confirmation purposes, but he pulls it out and looks at it, and you see him kind of place a hand over it, and you see that the whole thing goes up in flame, but you see that the smoke rising forms what looks to be like an egg, and he sees that, and it cracks open, and a little butterfly goes flying. And he kind of waves his hand and dissipates the magic and says, "Yes, that's very good, very good. Now, I'm sure that all of you have a great many questions. I have questions. How would you like to begin? With some information or with some answers?"
Is there something I can call you besides your really long name?
And you see he gives a huge, mirthful laugh,
and he says,
"You may call me Master Dom, good sir. Are those enough options for you?"
Works for me. I'll probably just not say anything.
That would be a real shame. It's going to take all of your voices to tell this story, I'm sure. Now, if you would come with me. And he walks you over to a large pearl-looking object. And he says, "Anyone who wishes to share a portion of your story, please simply place your hands upon this before speaking, if you would."
Ivan puts his hand in.
All right, so Ivan, you place your hand on this pearl, and immediately whatever it is that you're thinking about is thrown up, kind of holographically up above all of your heads. What's that?
The innkeeper.
Yeah, so immediately we see Tara's face and her beautiful red hair, and she looks to be kind of a stylized version of herself. She's even more beautiful than IRL, and her hair is kind of an even more saturated red color. And Dom kind of waves his hand like this, and you see it dissipate. It's a bit tricky. Sometimes it hiccups, involuntary thoughts, and all that. You were saying, Master Ivan.
Well, I don't suppose we can hide from you that we come from the sanatorium. And I suppose at that point, a picture of the sanatorium comes up with Brick and Rock and us sitting in the chairs with the crystal helmets.
My dear lad. And he kind of pushes your hand off of the pearl, and he places it upon the pearl, and you see a pitched battle. You see screaming and arcane bolts flying and firing, arcane explosions, and you see a party of what appear to be, humanoid figures in gleaming metal with lances driving down on Dom, and you see Brick coming up out of nowhere, and with a mighty arc, he cleaves off the tips of multiple lances that are all barreling down on Dom, and he snatches Dom up in his arm, under his arm, and you see him put a shoulder underneath one of the charging horses, and he diverts the horse as it's running. And you see him, he takes hoofs, strike him in the back of the head and the shoulder, and you can see blood is running down the side of Brick's head, but he's still just kind of blindly running, and you see him charging off with Dom. Any favor asked of me by the one who has shown such kindness to you will be repaid 1,000-fold to the best of my ability. My dear young man, not only do I know where you come from, I know a great many things story that you wouldn't even begin to dream or imagine. But please, do continue to tell me what you believe to be relevant to the story, and ask anything you wish. I'm curious to see it through your...
Ivan puts his hand back on and says, "Well, that really is Brick. He's a good man." But
you see Dom gets a little choked up, and he says, "Indeed he is. But he is not the focus of this story. You..."
Yes.
As are you.
And you and you.
Well, we were just in the sanatorium, having troubled minds and trying to ease them in the dreamscape when the dreams started to have unwelcome visitors. And then some images flash in of, well, who would we have seen? The weird goat guys, that disgusting, like, one with the huge, his, like, eye attached to the telescope thing.
You see, when you show him this, he looks like a kid in a candy shop. He asks you to replay it and replay, and he'll get different ones of you to come up and put your hands on the pearl, and he'll, try to compare notes and everything. And after you've shown him this scene for a while, he looks upon all of you and says, "Have been having the most incredible portents. This is astonishing. Do you realize no one has seen or heard of any myth or intelligence of this cursed place, whose name I shall not even speak, in millennia? And yet you find yourselves in the dream world, in an actual instance of this evil city." You guys know, and I apologize, I'd have to go digging through my notes, but I think that the name of the city was like, it had like Azaze. No, that was the name of the wizard. The wizard names himself Azazriel or something like that. And when you mention the name of the wizard, he kind of places a finger, says, "That will be enough. That will be quite sufficient. This dark wizard is many avatars of a dark and faraway god, whose effects upon the world as we know them are for the most part removed by the movements of the constellations. But at regular intervals, the threat reappears. Many thousands of epochs ago, this dark wizard sought to bore a hole through the very material of the material plane. He sought to undermine the pillars of safety of the land, and he was fought off. If his visage is resurging like this, it is a message that many will not wish to hear. You'd best, between yourselves and me, it is information that many upon some of the councils, and would give them cause to slit your throats where you stand. Do you understand?" He kind of looks over at you, Enion. Surely even you, Master Tunley, wish to keep body.
I'm working on it.
He chuckles.
Wait.
Who are the council?
Oh, well, there are many councils. I am the Archmage of the Council of Mordenkainen. Here at the Arcanium, there are several councils who come together at times of crisis like this to make great decisions at the High Moots. There will be councils of the Moon, councils of the Crescent Moon, the Council of the Raven, the Council of the Wolves, the Dark. In order for great decisions to face threats like the one that we stand under, the councils must agree.
There's too many councils.
Crocula raises his hand. He says, I just, in the last several hours, almost got my friend Enion killed because of not understanding who was an enemy and who was an ally. Could you please tell me who on these councils and which of these councils we ought to beware?
All of them, my good lad. When I tell you that I am your only friend in this place, please do not think that I am speaking out of vanity or coercion. Your friends sent you here because, danger as you may be, there is one path to your safety. Everybody make me an insight check.
So he's telling us that every other wizard in this place we should distrust.
I don't think he didn't say distrust. He said that they would be a threat to you. Like, he is your only ally. It's not just that you can't trust everybody else, it's that he's the only one looking out for your best interests.
10.
10?
18.
19?
19?
13.
13. Jim and Ivan, you guys both recognize there's something very big that he is not saying. And it's not because he's not being open with you and sharing real information with you. There's just something he's not saying. He looks at all of you and says, a good way to start would be by asking, Master Jim, do you enjoy your new amendments? And he kind of walks over to your ear and kind of hops up and runs a finger, kind of gives your legs a poke and kind of feels them and says,
Yeah, but they're weird, man.
Indeed they are. Weird how? How did you get them? How did you come by them?
I've been having all this magic powers since my accident, and sometimes strange things happen. I turned blue one time, all my hair fell out, and now I'm a rabbit.
I want you to tell me
Hopefully it'll
truly.
go away after a while.
Does make me an Arcana check.
22. I can do
You, when he asks you that, does this feel the same? You immediately, at a gut level, just go, no. Wait a minute.
No, it's different.
And he turns to you, Crocula, and he's, my boy, is your tongue without sin, without stain?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Young man, you've proved yourself reckless so many times from the days of your youth to now. And you see a sort of a...
Ivan is nodding vigorously.
Yeah. You see Don kind of walks over to the Pearl, and you see him muttering something over his breath, and you see his hands begin flying around in this incredibly symmetrical series of gestures, and you see a number of runes begin to light up across the surface of the pool. Up above, we see the party standing in the sort of area outside of the gate, and we see Matthew, we see Crocular. Karen. And as soon as he says the name Karen, you see the ears explode on Jim's head and the legs transform. And you see him kind of work his hands backwards. And you see Crocular standing next to the... he says, "This is a statue of Karen." As he says Karen, you see the young man whip his head around and stare at the party. And he says, "I'm not angry with you. I'm angry with a fish for being caught, or a deer for being shot by a hunter. It is specifically because the hook and the bow that they are able to take life. You said, my good large man," and he looks over at you, Ivan, "that you felt like you were a torch. A torch to whom?"
Well, Brick said we were a torch to the one we're not supposed to say the name of.
Karen. Very good. You can say her name in here.
Oh.
There are such profound wards over this place.
That's what they said at the asylum.
He can't even finish his sentence, and Enion says, "That's what they said at the asylum." I'm afraid that the Arcanium is a place of great ambition, but also a place of great hubris. I happen to know Dr. Fonselworth, and while I have a great deal of respect for his work, it leaves much to be desired. And as soon as she says Dr. Fonselworth, Jim, you know that that's the guy who signs the checks. That's the dude who is the head honcho of the Highview Sanitarium. Fonselworth, I need to...
The boss man.
Highview totally makes it sound like a retirement home.
I'm sorry.
A safe place would be nice.
I do not respect Karen. She is a poser. She is not creative or interesting in any way. And I don't see why we should respect her at all. I'm willing to not say her name, but my goodness, I am not afraid.
Well, a great deal of that sentiment is shared by all of the other members of all of the other councils. Almost.
Are we a council now?
Oh, I like that idea. Let's be a council.
No. That's not even. Let me stop you right there. That's not even remotely how it works.
The Highview Council.
The Highview Council of the
map. Listen. There are orphans. There are orphans who have picked up sticks and wrapped poisonous vines around their heads and declared themselves kings of kingdoms and knighted their friends with those sticks, who have more of a legitimate political claim to absolute monarchy than you do to being a councillor. So let's just stop. And he kind of looks around at all of you.
I have primal power from beyond space and time.
That you do. Such a thing is on the docket to talk about.
Our council will have the best marketing campaign.
And he grabs your hand and he slaps it down on the pearl and says, "Why didn't you tell us about exactly what you found in the restricted section of the restricted section of the library that day?" You see young Crocular, a lad of skinny as the day is long in the summer, skinnier than he is now, even more gangly and awkward. And we see him running a finger over
wait,
a series
can
of
I add,
books.
I just want to add one detail.
Please.
Young Crocular has that haircut where the hair comes down diagonally over one eye.
Yep.
Does he use super glue to style it?
It's so greasy.
We see young Crocular
like Chris Angel.
About how
every professor here is a nincompoop or a charlatan, and that he keeps
finding
real beauty, and he's going to find something fresh around here. You get the sense that he's rooting around sort of secret or source of an arcane bit of wisdom. You know, he's just on the hunt for knowledge. And we see him dragging a finger across the back, and his finger taps the top of one of them, and we see a chill in the air. You see just a tiny bit of ice form on his breath, and you see that the ceiling of the library becomes like
night sky
in this sort of vague swirling circle above the book. We see young Crocular stop and slowly pivot and turn and stand staring at this book. He looks, Dom looks at the three of you and says, "No doubt, a person with any amount of good self-preservation or good sense, or even just a vague inkling of moral duty to the existential safety of everyone around him, would remove his finger from such a book and at least go find a competent, experienced wizard to ask, is this safe? Is this a good..." Nope, he's already done it. And he points up at the image, and you see Crocular's hand has thrust forward and pulled the book off of the shelf. His feet are now hovering a couple of inches above the ground as he walks over to it and drops the book down on the table on its spine, and it falls open. Matthew, tell me, what do you think we see
to the page of the curator?
You have to understand that there were forms, shapes, images contained in that book, completely new, never before seen in the world. Not even the goddess we're not supposed to mention has access to shapes, forms, such as this. True creativity, a portal to something genuinely fresh and different and interesting. Of course I opened the book. Am I not an artist? And we see, like, if the camera looks at the book, it's not going to be something, there would have to be like an animation or something, because it's like a Lovecraftian geometry from another like dimension that can't really be genuinely be contained in this world.
Page of the book, you realize it doesn't even hold information on it two-dimensionally like on a page. You're just kind of looking into a space. And it gives you, like, all this is an arcane recreation of the image of it, so it's not quite so bad. But had you seen it in real life, it'd be somewhat eye-watering.
And we see
Crocular's eyes are glossed over, and they are black with little stars floating across them as he stares at these images. Some of them look like sacred geometry, but then some of it turns and forms and breaks into these sort of blueprint scheme things. But you've
going off of the blueprints,
and it looks like there are secrets here for how to create, images and technology and language and all sorts of stuff. And then you hear a series of footsteps, and you see the glittering light of a candle as the librarian rushes, slams the book closed, and you see Crocular kind of fall to the ground and hit his head, and he kind of comes up, kind of rubbing his eyes, and you see that those stars
slowly fading as
they seem to absorb into his eyeball. He is grabbed by his ear and lifting
up,
grabbing the librarian's hand, and you see him being dragged off. Dom, take your hand off of the and looks at you and says, "In that moment, you marked yourself, my friend, in a way useful to you, and now useful to Karen." She turns and looks at you, Ivan, and takes your hand, places it upon the viewfinder, and we see you as a young boy playing with your friends. Some boys come over and they begin beating up your younger brother, and they're hitting him with sticks, and you're shouting, "Stop it! Stop it!" You see a peaceful young boy who's never hurt anyone in his life, pleading, screaming, crying for these other boys to stop striking your brother. And we see you cry out in pain as you fall to your knees. Your skin seems to be boiling just a little bit. You can see spasms in your muscles, and a little begins to trickle down out of your eyes. Every time you scream in pain, your body looks like it's breaking down just a little bit more. We see one of your arms break of its own accord, just spontaneously. You immediately, your throat goes raw and you can barely even breathe, and you fall down on your face. And boys that are hitting your brother drop their sticks, and they're terrified at what is happening to you. And then we see white, holy light flood your body. Stand up, and you appear to be a foot taller than before, covered in the muscles of a man. And in a sheer blind rage, we see you striking these children with your powerful fists. And Dom snatches your hand off of the viewfinder and says, "Remember that, Ivan. That was a traumatic thing. And a much less child. Not a single boy who hurt your brother ever hurt anyone ever again. There are members of paladinic orders who would say that you were a champion for what you did that day. I'm sure that your conscience torments you. But know this, though they were children, they chose the wickedness of fully degenerate men. And that is not on you. What is upon you? Blessing and a curse." And he points at you, and he kind of points his finger away, and as he points his finger away, kind of a magical, illusory version of Ivan comes away, and you see him bring up a finger to that finger, and he peels them apart, and you see two Ivans. One who seems to be just kind of imploding on itself, like it's rotting and being broken and pummeled and destroyed, and then the other one is glowing with white, holy light. And he says, "You are no mere barbarian, my friend. There are tribes of men to the east who can summon the power of their own blood at a moment. Your power, for you have something within you that wounds and damages and inflicts great suffering and destruction upon you. And you have a healing and holy light that is even greater. This is why it is so painful for you every time you fly into a rage, because you've inherited both a blessing and a curse. A strange perversion, one useful to the lady." And he kind of he looks at you with great sadness in his eyes, places a hand upon your cheek. He goes, him, and
He says,
Jim, my dear man, you have suffered since you were a boy. Always a bit more feeble. Wait, no, hang on, sorry. He said,
No.
Jim,
Yeah.
you... Sorry, I'm sorry, I totally screwed that up. Back up 30 seconds. I know better than that. I just made a mistake. Jim, you were a strapping young man growing up, and you had high ambitions of serving others, in peace to those who were broken. And yet, here we are. You yourself, a broken man.
he takes your hand.
And says, if you're brave enough. And he places your hand on the pearl. And we see this person who is a patient at the Highview Sanatorium in their room, and we see that they have smuggled. We see them peel a piece of paper out of their mouth, and they cough it out. We see them smooth it, and we see them scrawling dark, evil, Corinic sigils on it, and we see him reach from underneath a stone. He pulls a stone out of the wall, and several other pieces of paper. He lays them out flat. And we see that he begins this ritual to try to summon Karen. And we see the door. We see you open the door and you go running in to try to stop this guy just as he's about to take a large rusty piece of stone. He tries to stab himself, and
And we see
your body racked and tormented with pain. He says, the price prevents this man from summoning the very forces of Karen into the Highview Sanatorium was that you summoned it into your very own body. And you have borne that wound in a deep place ever since. And he turns to you, Anion, and says, and you are naturally just bonkers as marbles. And along for the ride, aren't you?
Something like that.
He just kind of like, his shoulders drop, and he just kind of like rolls an eye and says, and yet, even though Karen has not mocked you, you've chosen. It galls me to say this, gentlemen. Karen may actually be our last hope. And he kind of makes a, I know I just said something you're not going to like sort of face. And that's where we're going to hit pause for a nice little 10-minute break. I will join you all back here at 9:05.
The tension, the cliffhanger.
Okay, bye everybody.
I'm going to leave my headphones on, but call me when we come back. Bye, Dwight.
Hi, Josh.
Hey, hey.
See my new built-in bookshelves?
Indeed. Indeed.
I built them myself. I painted them myself, and I painted it all.
They look beautiful. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm trying to do something real quick.
It was a lot of work. The paint hasn't finished curing yet, so I can't put my books on there yet, but soon.
Hey, I'm sending you emails. Can you download these two songs? One is champion, the other one's narration background. So it should be easy to keep apart. Exposition background, sorry. There we go. All right. I've sent both of them to you. All right.
The only one I've gotten is the
I heard
champion
talking.
music.
Yep, the other one should be there in a second.
Okay, got them both.
Thank you.
Cos Monkey.
Be not fooled by his simian name. He is a deft musical composer. Oh, did I say something? But I'm not. Ugh. Come here, hop up. Up. Come here. Good boy. Say hey to Bash.
Hi, Bash.
Say hey, Bash.
Hey, Bash.
Say, Dad, I'm really.
Hey, Bash.
Chris, you just bet me. Okay. Yeah. You're all the most important thing in my unit. All right, I'm done. But so my mom and dad got me this thing.
Bigfoot with a unicorn and a jackalope.
Yep, and it says Colorado. They took one look at this shirt while they were in Colorado, and they said, our son needs to own that shirt.
Yep.
Yeah, they know me.
Josh, you should read this. I got into a whole travel book kick a while back.
Yeah.
And there's this travel book called Patagonia. And it's just
Nice.
this dude in like the 60s or the 70s. He's English and he goes to Patagonia, and when he was a kid in like the 30s or the 40s or something, his grandfather had like traveled to Patagonia and brought back, and he remembered being showed at the dinner table his like old safari hatted explorer grandpa, like showing him this body part from like a Bigfoot or a dinosaur or some like
A giant
legendary creature. And so he went back to Patagonia as an adult, like trying to sort of track it down, but really more trying to write a book.
It's cool.
But that's only part of it. He also goes into the legendary American cowboys who left to Patagonia after they like left Texas or whatever. Like Billy the Kid or somebody ended up in South America. Yeah, there are a lot of Nazis in South America too, that's for sure.
Yeah. You guys ready to get back into it?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 2 of episode 14. Am I getting that right? Of the Starfall Collective Jade. Last we met, our brave heroes had finally managed to catch up with von Milschnapp der Schnellingmeissen and had been told many things. And they were about to be told yet another that they might not like to hear. Dom holds up a finger and says, "But I assure you, this medicine will go down much smoother with a bit of history. Tell me, what do you know of the Feywilding of Daigo Mochi?" Everybody roll me a history check.
17.
13.
15.
So everybody with a 10 or higher has heard bards, sharing some amount of information about this place. Everyone with a 15 or more has read a book
With someone who knows
something, and all of you are generally aware that at one point there was a great battle, that there was some evil wizard who Tarask, and some of the great heroes of the Alfblitzen summoned a great piece of Satyr tech, and a giant green colossus fought a Tarask, and then the city was swallowed in vines. But Jim, with a 17, that people who talk about this, who are in the know, they don't just talk about the fact that a giant green colossus fought a Tarask. They have a name up on their lips, the name Mephisto. And Jim, you managed to, so you volunteer this information however you see fit. But Jim, you're the only one who knows the name Mephisto. How does Jim share this information?
Mephisto is the giant?
Mephisto is the name of the evil wizard, who summoned who summoned a bunch of dwarves. That's the other part that everybody with a 10 or higher knows that this is crazy, because dwarves showed up out of nowhere. Dwarves who, when they were captured or alive or dying, seemed to be soulless. They seemed to have the faculties of a conscious person, but there didn't really seem to be a soul in there.
And we know that dwarves are legendary, not real.
Oh, well, you know dwarves anywhere. That anybody who says that they've seen a dwarf, they're just lying, or it was a fat halfling or a short man. But for, there were all of these soul...
Or they've been transformed by an evil wizard.
Yeah, exactly. Like, clearly these are not quote unquote real dwarves. These are beings that have been summoned by this evil wizard. We know that there was a threat from an evil wizard, Mephisto, and that he ended up summoning Tarask. So
I think Jim would say, "Oh yeah, Waggletop was going on and on and on about Mephisto summoning blah, blah." And I would kind of relay that information as something that Waggletop just kept talking about all the time. You
Indeed.
did a lot of research.
When the dark wizard Mephisto, when his crystal fell, it fell not to the surprise of the world that it fell at all, but to the great surprise of the councils, it fell quite early. And there are many implications of this
Dark wizard.
The councils are terrified, and they must send champions to meet this threat. Karen is also terrified, and I'm afraid, gentlemen, that she has plans for you. I'm sure you have many questions, but I think the next thing that you should see is this. And he kind of of you to come with him, and he motions to a series of chairs. You see that there are 5 chairs, and each of them has something that looks a bit like a dreamatorium headpiece, but you see that it doesn't lead to a normal. It leads to kind of a what looks to be something like a you would say maybe like a warforged, but it doesn't look to be humanoid. It looks to be kind of a quadrupedal. It doesn't look like it's made to look like an animal or something. It has kind of vague, amorphous, generally body-like core to it, and some appendages that it seems to be resting on.
But
he says, I am about to attend a meeting that none of you will be allowed in, but I will be allowed my personal warforged butler, and you'll be able to see through his eyes. I wish for you to trust me in this and observe for now. Afterwards, I will answer any questions I can. Do you understand?
Sure.
So all of you sit down in these seats, and you put on the through the eyes of this warforged over in the corner of the room, and you see Dom kind of looks into the eyes of the warforged and says, "Follow me." And Dom walks out of this room a disc, and that disc goes flying up in the air, up near the top. And you see Dom rise up through a hole. You know, the Warforged is looking up so that all of you can see. And it rises up into the... Dom looks around, and he is in a room that is simple and Spartan, lit by some little arcane sconces. And he opens a door and steps out into a large circular room that is dark. All of the light seems to be coming from hidden arcane sources. And you see a number of figures standing on little circular plinths, and each of these little plinths are arranged in a giant circle. Everyone seems to be spread out feet, and it's an immense circle with what looks like about 20 different figures. Each figure has a sort of androgynous skinned naked figure with a large silver blade held at the throat of each of these other figures. Some of them look to be elven. Some of them, you see one really old Firbolg. You see a number of a large orc barbarian chief looking figure. You see some fey beings. You see some purple-skinned drow. The Warforged kind of pivots, pans its head across the room to kind of give you a general view of the scene. If it was possible for the room to grow even quieter, everything goes to dead silence as a bard steps forward, and you see him plucking a lyre mournfully. You see him hang his head. Let us begin with the place of memory before time. The Guardian was lost to us. Bring! And he strikes a discordant note on his lyre. And we with those as without hope. when the great golden worm, the guardian of the Jade Temple, was slain, we feared that ancient evil, the worm that bores through the apple, the ancient devourer, Mephisto, would return. We prayed to the god for help, and Oberon supplied the guardian. The gates are not all safe. 2 have fallen already. The rest, but it is merely a matter of time before Mephisto has his way and gains control. We must act. And you see, there's some sort of polymorph spell on this guy or something, and now he looks like a old wizened elf. It is foolishness for us to trust our fate indefinitely to the Guardians. Rise to the challenge. Many of you have chosen to forsake the assistance of Karen. Many of you have chosen to hold the old alliances and the old bonds. If this is the case, it falls upon us. And you see that he morphs into a large orc. And the large orc says, "We speak with our people and with the favor of our giant cousins. We our places and our gates. We have the assurances of the Wolf brothers who run in that the gates will be held safe and that none shall approach." You see the figure morphs into a human who looks like a barbarian wearing a large fur sash and, cape over his shoulder. "Our blood is as strong as any of yours. We will hold our lands. We will hold our fealty. We will do our duty, and none shall pass." He transforms into a gnome who looks a bit bemused, who kind of leans forward and says, "Well, the Tesseract around the gate is still holding, still a winning strategies. We're just going to keep doing that. Anything else? This is such a waste of my time. I could be..." And it cuts off. And it turns into a small, red-haired halfling figure who looks with just absolute arrogance and disdain around the room before speaking. "I doubt any nose to slip out of their path. Don't make no mistakes about it. We'll be holding ours. You just make sure that you keep your fit." And the figure transforms back into the old elven figure who was speaking before. "Yes, the alliances hold, and we have strong allies holding each of the lands around the gates. But as I said, it is a matter of time before Mephisto manages to work his evil ways and cause 2 more to fall. Should he control a majority of the gates, he will be able to enter the Jade Temple. Will have control from the inside, able to move troops across our lands." "This is why we, the High Council, the High Moot who speaks with the voices of the councils of Mordenkainen, of the Raven, of the Moon, the Duck, have chosen..." Matthew, if you could hit the champions music for me, please. "Our champions." Actually, hit pause real quick. Sorry, I need to remember how to do that. There we go. Hang on one sec. Point to you. All right, hit it. Our the Jade champion, Melione. And you see an old, powerful, lean elven monk steps forward, and he drops the green silk kimono off of his shoulders. You see his in arcane tattoos, and he has these jade bracelets around his wrists, and he puts his fists together, and you can see raw ki energy between his hands. Mountain Breaker! Slurp! And you see this enormous orc who looks to be like 8.5 feet tall, kind of swings this large stone axe above his head and roars at the top of his... The final word! Helion! And you see a Warforged who looks obviously to be of the same kind of technology as the Warforged next to Dom, but just much more advanced. It's covered in kind of golden full. He puts his hands together and summons a small star between his hands. Everyone kind of looks away. The avatar of Arasanala, the necromancer, Diamondback! And you hear kind of a bunch of whispers from the crowd, and you hear some stifled kind of comments. Obviously, this is causing a bit of a stir that this figure is part of the group. And the leader of the champions, the goodest boy, Felix! And a anthropomorphic golden retriever step forward, and the moment you do, you can see the look in everyone else's eye change. All the other champions standing around Felix stand up straighter. You see that Diamondback's muscles are all rippling and flexing, and the council all break out into thunder, and you hear people just cheering for Felix. And you realize this is a paladin with an aura of courage around him that causes everyone around kind of overflow with vitality and drive. The figure kind of shifts to the elven. It's still the old elven figure, and he says, "Champions, we charge you to travel into the Feywilds, to engage the Dark Wizard, Mephisto, to prevent his claim upon the Jade Temple, and bring peace to the land." And you see Felix gives this loud, this bark that seems to echo and reverberate throughout, and Diamondback does this kind of martial arts pose that looks to be kind of snake-like. Mela places his hand in a fist and bows. Helion places his as a deep 90-degree bow at the waist. Slurp kind of rolls his shoulders and gives a and with that, see that the council, all the clapping and thunderous cheering for Felix and the band. The figure, the elven figure, throws his hands out and silence falls. These champions, the authority, the might, and the response of the highest of high councils. This is settled. And with that, everything kind of goes to black. And you guys, take the pieces off. Moments later, Dom appears, coming from the room that he had left, presumably coming back on that floating plinth. And he looks at all of you and says, "So, you have seen the show, the distraction. As much as I adore Felix, and as much respect as I have for Helion, as much as I fear Slurp, and as much as I admire a fellow man of great ambition willing to take all means accessible, I am afraid their mission will be doomed, were it not for yours. You see, a full-on assault against Mephisto is almost certain suicide. If anyone can do it, these 5 can. But my money's actually on you. And he points at the 4 of you and says, you see, while council's champions will be engaging visibly from the front, I have a little bit of all of you. And you see he holds out his hands, and you see a number of nodes pop up in the air. These nodes have little images, and you can see an guys walking away from the ship and walking down the gangplank, and you can see images of the assassins moving around, and you can see a few other people that you didn't recognize, and you see that Dom is manipulating all of them, and you guys look at him and you go, there's no way, this should not be possible. He seems to be actively manipulating each little mote up there, and he says, you see, any well-informed plan has certain redundancies, and he kind of shifts his hands, and you see a little mote of light that connects the images of you guys starting at the ship and getting all the way to him, and he kind of collapses his hands together, and it forms just a single kind of storyline image in the air, and he lets it go. And he says, trust me when I say, gentlemen, that not even Mephisto will see what Karen has in store for him. And with that, we will stop the scene and the curtain for a moment. Gentlemen, you have all been conscripted into the purposes of Karen. I just want to do a little check-in. How's everybody? You guys okay?
Like us as players, or how are our characters reacting to that?
Okay, all right. We'll respond in character. Yeah. So, the curtain comes back up. Dom looks at all of you and says, "Gentlemen, you have been conscripted by Karen herself to provide an assault upon an evil so great that it scares her. Cooperation. Now would be the time to turn running and screaming, though I should warn you, each of you curse upon you that not even I could remove it. So your options are spend the rest of your days running from a mad goddess of chaos and suffering, or try to surf the wave."
Can I get rid of this rabbit thing? And does this fix the dreamscape?
Okay, so you say that, and he kind of looks at you and says, well, if you're sure you want to be rid of them, I mean, they are quite stylish.
Yeah, no, I don't like it.
He kind of do some elaborate finger movement, and he pulls some components out of a pouch and casts them over you, and he casts Dispel Magic. Ears and legs, you return back to normal. As for the dreamscape, I'm sure that once you choose to take up the path that she has for you, and frankly that I myself have for you, this is where I differ from my colleagues. I see great wisdom in this. I believe you should be able to dream your dreams, at least certainly much more unscathed. I can't make any promises that Karen will leave you alone. At the very least, she obviously finds you fascinating.
So I know how the Wicked work. If they need a tool, they'll use it, but she's gonna kill us afterward.
Not in the habit of making promises on Karen's behalf or excuses for her behavior. But at this point, I might have to appeal to your deeper sense of obligation. You see, you're sort of the only heroes we've got that are really going to be able to sneak around from behind, so to speak. Did you ever ask yourself why Karen chose you, each and every one of you?
Because she's an annoying poser?
Again, not going to make excuses on her behalf.
Oh, the curse blessing.
Yes, the curse blessing. Everybody roll me an insight check.
19.
4.
Yeah, Ivan, with a 19, you get real frustrated because you realize that you almost a look in Dom's eye, and you missed something. You know that he was. You're not sure what it is. You don't know if he's, or if he's
Twisted something.
or if he's added something that shouldn't be there. You just know that there's some intentional miscommunication happening, but only you even get a sense that that might be the case. And you only got it because you got a 19. Yeah, Dom looks at all of you and says, your friend, Enion, he doesn't have quite the same level of, well, wildness in three of you, but all of you, Pone and Veda as well, you were all at the Highview Sanatorium not merely because you were broken one way, but because you were broken many ways. I believe some of you may have had some moments where you didn't feel quite yourself, where your memories didn't quite feel where your face didn't seem to belong on your own body. Karen chose each of you only broken here, but you are broken in... I don't mean to speak to you as children, but I must be vague about some things because there's certain details you won't even comprehend. But in other times, in other places, in other lives, you could think of it, you've been broken similarly. And Karen herself found you, these little curious, inscrutable motes, scrambled souls.
All right. Enough of this gentle talking. We'll do it.
I have a question.
You see Dom looks kind of sad because he doesn't know whether Ivan cut him off because it was too much to hear or because he's bored. But you see that Dom isn't a mind to keep forcing it down your throat. And he kind of turns and looks at Crocular with some sadness in his eye and says, yes.
What has this Mephisto done?
Well, Mephisto is a wizard, a summoner of such a that in a previous life, many previous lives ago, he worked out how to do something that most necromancers, but he did it with a pattern. When he reached a high enough level of power, he intentionally ascended on his own terms. And when he says ascended, you know that this is a thing that can happen. Like there are a lot of and clerics and monks that reach a high enough level, and rather than dying to be with their god in the afterlife, they ascend up into the heavens. And so there are whole religious branches of Palerism and Oberon kind of center around the providence of these gods, heroes coming from the stars. But you also know that there are tales of evil kind of returning on a cycle from the.
So he's some kind of performance artist?
He does real flair for panache. I'll give that. I mean, it's a tremendously dramatic thing to summon a fortress and an army of. Fortunately, when he was summoned,
reviews?
What's that? What did Crocula say?
Get good reviews?
Get good reviews. Well, I'm sure there are many who found it absolutely entertaining to watch a monster from the depths of time and from the depths of the abyss destroy their homes and their villages. Yes, I'm sure it was quite spectacular.
Spectacle is played out. Tacky.
I agree. And I don't think that he has much more spectacle in store for us. Merely doom and doomsday. He came.
I don't see why I should be worried about this guy.
He came when he did, because there was a great vulnerability. My people showed up when we did, and we should have been here for a good 1,000 years to prepare for him. But he has come early. He is of the tear that was made between this world and the Feywild through the Feywilding of Fujidome. It has created that has led him to the place where the gates of the Jade Temple protected. If he is able to take control of a majority of the gate, he will be able to open and close these gates. He will be able to move armies throughout the land. It will mean the end of the Elven Empire, the end of the humans, the end of the orcs, and I dare people have a slim chance of survival should all the other races fall. So it falls upon all of us to work as one to answer this threat.
Mr. Dom Delabrum? Mr. Master Dom?
Indeed, that will do.
Have you ever heard of an art monster?
If such a thing is real, is this something Crocula has made up, or is this something he's experienced?
Never mind.
No, he looks at you and kind of squints your eyes and says, "Please, attempts for me, young man."
An art monster is a kind of psychopath who doesn't care about other things. This is the kind of person painter might cut off his ear, sort of thing. You need to sell this to me in a very particular way. We're going to make a work of art, a performance that will take down some posers, and it'll get great reviews.
I see what you mean, and forgive me, young man, for not speaking your language. Indeed, this vain charlatan stumbled upon a beauty and a truth that comprehensible by the remainder of us mere mortals. He seeks to create such an obsequious oh gosh, I had the word for just a second. Not maudlin. What's maudlin mean again?
Like sort of sad and mawkish.
Yeah. Such a mockery of truth and beauty that will cause the souls of all to weep for. And might I add, young man, you'll be going to a temple created by literal gods where the very artwork is alive. I guarantee you, you will see no such thing like it, and scarcely a man ever has. Should you choose to follow this path, you will
Shame
that which is base and exalt your own soul. That I swear to you.
Do you remember when that one guy, and I'm going to name some elf that nobody's ever heard of, did a painting which was just taping a banana to a wall? And then another guy, and I'm going to name another elf that nobody's ever heard of, went up to it and ate the banana.
I remember it was truly hilarious from my perspective.
Tell me that we're just eating Mephisto's banana?
Oh, most certainly. You are his fruit in a way that will cause him absolute shame and degradation. You'll break his spirit as an artist. And if such a thing appeals to you, I'm sure when you get back, we could find a way to publish your contribution.
I'm in.
Jim, my good man, do you wish for a chance to spit in the eye of great evil? Do you wish for a chance to be not broken, but breaker of the mighty?
Well, I'd rather not get close enough to spit on it, but I also rather not have everybody die. So I guess I'm in.
Begrudging, but I'll take it. Ivan, where does your soul stand? How much convincing do you require? You've been trying to throw your life away for some time, I should point out. This might be an excellent way to get that done.
Yeah, do I have to say it again?
No, but I'd like for your friends to hear it.
Yes, I'm in.
And he turns to Enion and whispers something into Enion's ear, and Enion stands there for like 3.5 minutes. And Dom just stands there, just stares at him, and finally Enion leans forward and whispers something in Enion's ear, in Dom's ear. And Dom smiles and turns and looks at all of you and says, "You know, I as much as I admire Felix, I think this is the play. These will be my champions. I'm afraid there's a bit of an Odyssey between. It's going to the journey. You see, part of the beauty of this is just how sneakily we're going to sneak in that back door. Now, if you'll take a look at this 47-part plan, I'll begin the debrief." And he pulls down a map. And that's where we will resume. Is with the debrief of Dom Delabrambo's harebrained plan to use a handful of mental patient escapees to take down one of the more evil summoners in the world at the moment. Congratulations, guys! You've made it to the Jade Odyssey.
Yay! Oh, man.
You want me to be a mental patient taking on an all-powerful wizard? Okay.
And that concludes this episode of The Disposables.
The Disposables. The Lunchables. All right. Thanks, everybody. We're so glad that you could join us. Join us next time as we receive the call to action. Join us next time as our intrepid heroes take up the call to action, as I am joined by Crocular, Jim, Ivan, and on this Jade Odyssey. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
That reminds me of Swords and Sorcery.
You can leave it running. Yeah, this is a track made by my buddy. He's a actual composer, and he put together some sick beats for us. This was a nice
Cool.
chill outro vibe. So is everybody good for playing next week?
Yeah.
Excellent. So
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for doing all this.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. It's fun playing with you guys. All right. Well, I guess I will see you guys next week. Actually, while we're here, I'm getting some really weird. Oh, did you hit stop on the